Welcome back to Bass Fishing for Noobs on the Paddle and Fin podcast. I'm your host, Ryan, and today we have a really epic guest. He's a big YouTuber. You know, he's getting on up there, man. I really enjoy a lot of his videos. He's really educational with a lot of that stuff. We got Hank Rodgers, Bass Geek. Welcome to the show, Hank.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's good to come by. Love the podcast. Love what you guys do. Love your Facebook page. Love that you guys do the same thing that I like to do and just talk about bass fishing and help people catch more fish.
Yeah, man, that's the goal. Is like just trying to help people, and I'm helping myself along the way too. I've never been a great angler, and this year I've gotten really good, and I owe a lot of that to the podcast, talking with different people. But yeah, you do a lot of like educational type stuff on your channel. I know, a lot of people that listen to this know that I really like throwing a jig. And, I've been throwing a jig pretty much since I first started bass fishing like 6 years ago. But a while back, whenever I was trying to, I wasn't real good with the jig. And when I was trying to get better with the jig, I was looking through YouTube and stuff, trying to find videos on it. And I believe that's the first time I ever found you. And you got a pretty good jig tutorial video on there. And one thing I really like about the video you did is you really kind of break it down and simplify it. See, somebody that's wanting to try out jigs for the first time that's never used them, it can be really kind of complicated because there's just so many different types of jigs out there, so many different types of heads and all that stuff. And you really simplify that. Like, look, there's only like a few different types of jigs. The rest are just variations off of these different jig heads. So that made me really get into you right there, where you're breaking stuff down for somebody that, may not have a clue what they're doing and help them get a sense of that. So yeah, we're hoping, we can get some more of that on the podcast here tonight.
Well, man, I swear, a jig is something that I picked up almost immediately. I mean, I've probably been throwing a jig. Shoot, I'm old, first off, let me tell you.
You can't be that old.
Yeah, man, I'm closing in. I'm 45, and I'm closing in on 46 real fast. And
hey, I'm a couple weeks away from hitting 31. I'm feeling pretty old myself.
I wish I was 31 again, man. Let me tell you. But a jig was something that I picked up a long time ago, and one of the first jigs, I got lucky. One of the very first jigs that I picked up was that Arky style jig. It was a total accident. I didn't, when I was first learning, I tell people all the time, I never really had anybody to teach me about bass fishing. I just kind of discovered Bassmaster when I was younger, and I probably picked a jig up sometime, around, probably 13, 14, 15, somewhere in there. And, and I wasn't doing what everybody kind of thinks about a jig. At least old guys with me, you say jig, we say pitch and flipping. I mean, that's, we know that you can swim a jig and you can do all these other things with a jig. But, back then I picked a jig up and I kind of just threw it out there and worked it over cover and kind of cast it. And that's one thing, if you ever notice, like I always tell people, one of my favorite jigs is that Arky style head jig, or some people call it a casting jig. Some people call it a flipping jig, or a skipping jig, because it's got that wide head. It skips real well. And, with that video, I just kind of thought back about when I was really learning, how to fish a jig, and how I kind of gained confidence with it. And it wasn't starting out flipping it. It wasn't starting out, skipping under docks or doing a lot of fancy stuff. It was really fishing it kind of like the same way you'd fish a Texas wet rig worm. But to me, I knew, man, this looks, with that trailer, looks a lot more like a crawdad. And so why wouldn't I fish this around this rock over here, where crawdads live, So it was just about kind of matching the forage to me, and just and fishing that way. And I don't even think there was such thing as a football head jig back then. So, this was kind of the be all end all. And you had ball head jigs and you had arky head jigs. That was about it back then, So, when it comes to jigs, man, I mean, I know a lot, and I get a lot of guys, and one of these days I really need to do a video on, talking about a lot of guys that I talk to that don't have a lot of confidence with a jig. It's because they started fishing it from the shoreline. And as weedless and snag proof as a jig is, fishing it from the bank, you have to do some things differently because, from a boat or a kayak or whatever, you're fishing that bait downhill 90% of the time. So it's a lot easier to drag something off and not get it hung as opposed to try and come up and over it. And so, that's one of the things as far as like bank anglers, or if you're fishing a certain direction, dragging may not be an option for you, but small, hops is a better option if you're learning how to fish a jig from the bank. And, I love jigs. I don't fish them as much as I should anymore because I've kind of moved on to kind of what ended up becoming my second favorite thing in the world because I can fish it a little faster, and that's soft plastic swim baits now. So, I've really, I feel like I spent so many years fishing a jig that was my crutch, my go-to bait, that I've kind of really figured it out. And now it's like I found this moving bait that I can fish in dirty and clear water, and I kind of feel the same thing. I mean, you think about those two baits alone, and you think about how versatile those two baits can be. You can take a jig, and I tell people, and all the time, I think one of the most innovative jigs that's came out in a long time is, and I never can remember his name, so I think it's Steve something, but the guy that designed the Rage Tail, the Rage Flange, came out with a jig called the Trashmaster jig. And that jig, you actually screw the trailer up on it. It doesn't have a traditional brush guard. And you Texas rig the soft plastic in. It is completely weedless. And so I tell people all the time, if you really want to gain confidence, especially the shore angler or somebody that's fishing around a lot of snags, trees and heavy cover or flipping, that jig's amazing because you will not get hung with that jig. So it's real easy to go into the heavy cover with confidence. But if you think about it, you can fish a jig, even an arky jig, from almost, just subsurface to on the bottom. Now, how many baits can you do that with? I can take a soft plastic swim bait and I can fish it as a wake bait, or I can drag it on the bottom. What other baits out there are that versatile? I mean, what other baits can cover a water column? You can't do it with a crankbait. You can't really do it, with a jerk bait or a spinner bait. I mean, spinner bait's pretty close. It's pretty close. The spinner bait is kind of what led me to swim baits, oddly enough. But, they're just so versatile and so natural looking, and they catch bigger fish too. And that's why I like them so much.
And you're really catching my attention with that right there because, I tell people all the time I'm a strict budget fisherman. So the more I can simplify it, use something for multiple purposes, well, I ain't got to go out and buy two different things. I'm all about that. So you got my attention.
Well, those are two, and I'll tell you something that I've kind of I've kind of graduated away from a lot of dragging on the bottom, and I don't know if you've seen my summer video where I talked about a wobble head. A wobble head, to me, I can almost get away from fishing a Carolina rig. Now, a Carolina rig is always going to have its place. Everything's a tool in the toolbox, right time, right place, right situation.
Right.
But a wobble head has really become something that if I think they're on a jig bite on the bottom, if I think they're really feeding on crayfish, that's something that I can put a heavier weight on, put me a good soft plastic crawl imitator, and I can select with my favorite one is I'm not sponsored by any of these companies, but the Strike King tungsten. And what I love about it is that you can put whatever hook you want on it. So you can put whatever bait you want on it. But it's a great search bait. And that's what I'm always looking for. And that's one thing that weekend anglers, if you get out, I always tell, people if you don't fish a single lake 3-4 times a week, you always are relocating the fish.
Mm-hmm.
And me, I get really bored. I get really bored fishing the same water over and over. I mean, it bores me to death because I like the finding. I like the figuring, the solving of the puzzle. That's catching bass is fun, but solving the puzzle is the deal. And when you solve it and you catch them, that's like, oh my God, so you can use a jig as a search bait. You can use a wobble head as a search bait. You can use a swim bait as a search bait. And then, in almost any water clarity, that's what's great about it. You go to super clear water, you're not necessarily going to throw a crankbait in that, or a spinner bait, especially on slick, calm days. So.
Yeah, man, I'm the opposite of you with that. Like, I just want to catch them. I'd like to go out there. I've told people on here before, the most bass I've ever caught in one day is 5. Like, I'm waiting on the day where I can go out there and just slam out 15, 20, 25 fish. But, hopefully I'm going to be a lot better at that soon. I finally got me a somewhat decent fish finder. I was using a little $40 thing from Amazon. I finally got me a somewhat decent one. I still got to hook it up to my kayak and everything, but man, I can't wait to be able to use that and learn how to use it and all that. But
man, and there's nothing wrong with a $40 fish finder. I started out with a flasher, like they ice fish with. That's how I learned how to find fish offshore. Was I would sit there and graph with a flasher. And that's where I started at. My next unit was like an Eagle that I think I bought from Walmart or somewhere, a total grayscale. So, I mean,
this thing I have is pretty much only good for telling you the water depth, which does help out. If you think that in the deeper water, it helped me find like some holes in the river where those bass might be hiding, like when it's really hot in the summer and whatnot. But this new one is going to actually, it should show me fish down there, structure on the bottom. So now I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, listen, man, there's nothing like you will get lost in staring at a good depth finder. It's as much fun to just go around and find stuff and see stuff that you don't realize was there. I was out on, well, I'll give it away on your podcast. I call it Top Secret Lake S, but I was out yesterday. I took a tail kicking. That lake, man, he can be real tough at times. And, as one of my buddies say, don't use that as an excuse. Somebody's always catching them, but, it sure wasn't me that day. But, so I went out there and, I was trying to figure out if the shad were coming or going, if they were moving to the backs or if they were pulling out. And so I go back to the back of this one creek pocket, and normally where I know just there's a road bed back there, and there's just normally a huge amount of shad back there. So I go back there, there's no shad, but just as I'm turning around getting ready to leave, I see a log laying on the roadbed and a bunch of fish around it. So now, you know, you can't always tell what bass are. Don't let all these guys on YouTube, like I try to prove the point all the time. People are like, oh, you know, bass look like this. And I'm like, no, I'll take you to a lake where they stack just like crappie. And I said, I catch them. And, but you know, they was around this log and I thought, man, that's just the right, you know, depth. I'm going to pull out my little Spro rock crawler. I make 2 or 3 casts over there and I can feel myself hitting that log and whack. I catch a daggone 12-inch perch. I didn't know there was perch even in that lake. And I fished that lake for a while now. So, but that's what I'm saying. You know, one of the things shallow water anglers, especially with the advent of the mega from Humminbird, you know, I was talking to a buddy the other night and he was talking about frequencies. All right, he got me into talking about frequencies. And you know, I use different frequencies on my sonar in different ways. You know, I always tell people the way you can look at frequencies is, you know, especially in down imaging and side imaging, you know, you've got 455. If you've got a chirp, now that's a range, and that's a whole nother story. We'll just say 455, you got 800, and you got the 1200 for the mega. You got to remember, basically, each one of those, it's like shining a light. And that 455 is a brighter light. It penetrates the water deeper. So a lot of times when I go out on lakes like South Holston and Cherokee and Douglas, those lakes don't have a lot of real heavy bottom. There's not really any standing timber down deep. You know, there's rock, there's sand, and there's more rock. You know, that's what's there. So a lot of times if I'm fishing out deep past that 25 foot, 35 foot range, I'm using that 455 because it makes the bass really pop. You really get a strong return. You got a stronger signal out and a stronger signal back. And that falls off from the mega. But what the mega does is it shows, you know, detail, target separation real well. So when you're up shallow, you can take that and you can drive down a bank and you can set it on your side image and you can discern where the bass are sitting at on rocky banks that look like nothing, or you can discern where, you know, the bass are on a point. You know, are they buried up in the rock? Are they out of it? And, you know, so I tell weekend anglers like myself, I'm a weekend angler, you know, just like you said, you know, I tell people all the time, I'm not good enough to be a pro and I'm not good enough to be a guide. You know, I'm just a guy that's out there learning. And that's all I'm doing on my YouTube channel is sharing that experience of what I've, you know, learned, you know, and one of the things that has really sped up the learning process for me, and I tell people all the time, electronics are more important to guys like you and me than they are to the pros. The pros fish every single day, sun up to sundown. They're going to figure it out, you know. But for us, we need those units to provide us an edge, you know, to be able to find those fish a lot faster because we might only get 1 day on the water or 2 days on the water, you know, and that's all I get. I get 1 or 2 days on the water, but, you know, I try to make the most of them. And, you know, so electronics I realized, like I said, at a young age that even seeing fish on a flasher while I was going back and forth over a point on a John boat was a big deal. It's a big deal.
Yeah. me personally, you know, I'm lucky if I get one day a week. It's usually like every other weekend. So I definitely see what you're saying, because there's a lot of the times, like say that what I was talking about earlier, that day that I caught 5 fish, the most I ever caught, I went out there like the next weekend or the weekend after that, got like one bite, didn't get a single fish in the boat. And so the fish were gone from the areas that I was catching them in, which was kind of within like 5 feet around wood structure. I wasn't getting any bites around those same areas. I was in the same area that I was catching them at.
And remember, you know, guys, don't beat yourself up for that. You know, let me ask you a question. What kind of baits do you fish most often?
Most often, well, earlier in the year, it was a whopper plopper. I was throwing it almost all the time.
All right, big fish
and
bait.
then jig.
Big fish bait.
I see where you're going with this.
See where I'm going with this? See, I don't catch a lot of numbers because in my mind, I'm always practicing for a tournament. You know, I don't fish. I don't get to fish a lot of tournaments, but I also have done the research to understand that in this area where I'm from, and if you look almost nationwide, we're not talking MLF rules. We're talking about, you know, 5 fish limits, 15 pounds, 5 3-pounders is going to cash you a check in almost every tournament. And in a lot of tournaments, 15 pounds will put you in the top 10 or top 5. And in almost every BFL in the volunteer division, which is where I fish, if you go back and you look at the past 5 or 10 years, 15 pounds will put you in the top 5 about 98% of the time. So 3-pounders, and that's my mindset is that's what I'm looking for, you know. So, you know, I love to catch numbers, but my wife and my don't get me wrong. Now I'll take a day of 30, 12 inches. I will take it gladly, but I will take a day of 5 3-pounders over 30, 12 inches. Yeah. Not because, you know, for any other reason, just because I like to catch the bigger fish. My wife, she gives me a hard time. I just the video that come out, when was it? Wednesday? Yeah, Wednesday. I took a buddy of mine, the guy that owns Bass Munitions, out.
I saw this one.
We were topwater fishing, and I caught dinks. And I coached football for 13 years. So my weakest point of fishing is fall fishing. And unfortunately, I've already missed the best bite this year. Anyway, that's a long story with work and everything. Unfortunately, you know, like I say, I'm not a pro, so I don't get to go fishing every time I want. But, you know, I caught 2 dinks, and they always give me a hard time because when I catch dinks, you know, I just kind of give them a little toss back. My wife's like, "Stop doing that." And my son-in-law was sitting with me, and he goes, "Well, Hank don't think they're big unless they're 3 pounds." And I'm like, "Yep." I'm like, "It's got to be at least be a 3-pounder, you know." Like I don't get too excited over dinks unless I'm catching them one after another anymore. But that's just because I've been doing it for so long, you know.
Right.
And so the point I was trying to make to you is that you like to fish like I like to fish. And so every bait you named right off the bat, they're big fish bait. They are. Everybody knows a whopper plopper is a big fish bait. Everybody knows a jig is a big fish bait. What was some of the others you were getting ready to name there?
I'm probably about to do it a little bit more, but it wasn't so much back then. But every now and then I throw like a Ned rig or like a little 4-inch finesse worm. But other, you know, the whopper plopper and jigs pretty much what I'm throwing most of the time.
Yeah.
Not so much the whopper plopper the past few months, but jig. I've been let's see. I've been trying to chatterbait. Yeah, most of my bites been off jig. I did catch, it's nothing crazy special, but not. A few weeks ago, I caught a new personal best smallmouth. I don't catch a lot of smallmouth, so it ain't huge. It's like a 17-incher, but I caught that on the Ned rig, so that's probably why I'm probably about to start throwing it a little more. I feel like I maybe figured a little something out with that. And so I'm gonna test it out a little more and then put that fish finder to use, and maybe it'll help me with it a little bit.
Well, that's awesome, man. The Ned rig, it's something that I just don't pick up enough. I don't pick up a drop shot enough unless I'm vertical fishing a drop shot.
I've never used a drop shot. But
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say. I can't remember if I talked about this on the last episode or not. I talked to somebody about this not long ago. I can't remember if I did it here on the podcast or if it was just talking to somebody. But it might have been here on the podcast, but I'll tell you about it anyways. I saw some on Instagram not too long ago where somebody took an offset hook and put a split ring on the eye and put a drop shot weight on that split ring and fished it like that. And I don't know why I'm so amazed by it, but I'm like, that looks really cool for some reason. And it seems like it might have some pretty cool action. I want to give it a shot and just see how it does.
That's kind of like they had the hook and they had the weight actually attached to the split ring and to the... Yeah. That kind of reminds me, there's a rig, it's called like a Geek rig or something like that. There's actually... somebody makes a rig like that. Now it's called something like that. I partner with Mystery Tackle Box, and it was in the Mystery Tackle Box. I think it should be. I haven't looked at the video yet. I don't want to disappoint anybody. But it should be coming out Sunday if all the audio is good. I film it with a GoPro, so
it'll actually be out before this. This will air Tuesday.
So, okay. So
that episode should be out by the time y'all are hearing this.
Yeah. Okay. So, they had some in there, and that is a pretty neat rig. It's a rig that I haven't tried a lot, and to me it's kind of like a variation of the oh my gosh, I just went brain dead. The Wire.
That's. I can't remember.
Oh my God, I can't believe I don't remember the name of this.
but whenever I believe I did talk about this rig last week on the podcast, and they referred to that same thing where you got the wire coming, you put some weights on it, and you bend it over. Yeah. I can't remember what they called it, but I've seen it before.
I can't.
Come on, Hank. How can you forget this?
I can't believe I've forgotten the name of this rig. Oh my God!
You're a famous YouTuber on fishing, and I'm playing with you. I'll give you a hard time.
Listen, I'm old. I'm so old I fart dust, and most of that's my brain. It's just coming out.
Well, I'm glad I got to you before it was all gone.
Yeah, it's leaving in a hurry. I've been married 25 years. I love my wife, but you have to go numb sometimes. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know what you're saying. I love my wife. My wife is perfect.
I'm not telling her the name of this podcast, so I'm safe. So.
Oh man. So but yeah, let me when you were talking about swim baits earlier, what's your favorite type of swim bait to use?
I love I love big, the big hard swim baits, of course, but for me it goes back to versatility. If you ever watch any of my videos, 90% of the time, I got 200 stinking rods sitting on the deck of my boat, which drives me crazy constantly. Because I'm always like, well, I might throw this and I might throw that. Let me go ahead and get this one out too. I might throw that. And then most of the time I'm throwing a jig and a swim bait. And a jerkbait. A jerkbait is another one. I just have such confidence in a jerkbait.
Jerkbait is something I've been trying to throw a little more here lately. I've never caught a fish off of it, but I love the concept of it. Like, I love the feel of it when you're working it and everything.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm throwing it in the wrong places or just not getting the action quite right or what, but that is something that I want to hone in on a little more.
Well, a jerkbait and a walking bait, a topwater walking bait's a lot of the same concept. Jerkbaits are shallow, but I'll throw some of my favorite, and again, not sponsored by any of these companies, but two of my favorites, I think two of the best jerkbaits on the market right now, is the Shadow Wrap by Rapala, and that's a good, affordable jerkbait that has caught me some very big fish. As a matter of fact, I've caught bigger fish on that bait than I'm getting ready to say the $25 equivalent of that bait, which is probably one of the most innovative designs to come out in a jerkbait in a long time, which is the Mega Bass. So the Mega Bass 110 is, it's a very, very good design, but it costs $25. So I understand, if you can't go out and buy a bunch of $25, I can't go out and buy a bunch of $25 jerkbaits, and so the thing of it is a great place to start is really those Rapala, those Shadow Wraps. And they come in great colors, and they come in two different types of jerkbaits. They come in the shallows and they come in the deep divers. Now the deep divers, I think you can get it floating, but the ones I always buy are the slow sink, and it's a very slow sink. But a lot of times the reason why I buy that way is because I do fish a lot of highlands reservoirs. So when I'm fishing, and they're clear, so when I'm fishing in that water, and I'm working that point or that bank, I can work it down a little deeper than you can get the 110s, which are suspenders. But it is so much about cadence with those two baits. With a topwater walking bait, one of the biggest mistakes, and I had a video this summer where I was catching these bass over a 30-foot creek channel ledge. They were suspended up over that creek channel ledge in 15 foot of water. And I was taking a one knocker and just working it so slow and methodically. Well, a lot of people want to get a jerkbait and they want to just jerk. They just want to work it way too fast.
Yeah, I think that's how I do it.
Yeah, and you've got that pause is so important. I always tell people just think about it like this: go twitch, pause, twitch, pause, twitch, pause, and do it. If it's warmer weather, do it just like that. And remember, a jerkbait's not generally something that you're going to throw deep, but it can, in clear water, call them from a lot deeper than you think it will. And the same way with a topwater walking bait. A lot of people want to get that bait, they want to throw it out there, and they will go twitch. Well, if those fish are 15 and 20 foot down, and you just work that bait over, and it goes 100 miles an hour over their head, they kind of look at it and go, yeah, I'm good. I got to go 20 foot up and then 20 foot out to go chase that down. And it ain't but 4 inches long. Ain't worth my time. But if you get up there and you just go twitch, man, when that's over their head and it's just twitching, making those real long, side to side. Oh, they hate it. They'll kill it. And it's the same way, with a jerkbait. You get it out there, you throw it up on the bank. I always tell people all the time, and a spinnerbait I use this all the time with spinnerbait. If you see a bunch of bluegill on the shore, pick up a rock and throw it over by them. What's their reaction? They dart out about 3-4 foot and then they turn around and look. They're like, what was that? You know, like, I'm scared to death. What was it? You know. Well, even when I throw a spinnerbait, I throw it up there shallow, and the first 2 or 3 cranks from that splash, I just crank it real hard, and then stop and let that bait fall. And the same thing with anything. If I'm throwing a walking bait up shallow, I'm twitch, and then as I get out over deeper water, I'm slowing it down. If I throw a jerk bait up around shallow water, I'm gonna twitch it a little faster, and then as I get over deeper water, I'm gonna slow it down. You want to give those fish an opportunity for it to come up to it. Now, sometimes they're just so active, they're going to do it. It don't matter what speed you're twitching it at. But a lot of times, you know, if those fish are out there deep or suspended, a lot of times that's what you're starting to get into this time of year as we get into winter. Those sunny days, as we get colder, as we drop it under those 50-degree marks, those bass are going to get out there on those points. They're going to suspend up in those sunny days, and they're going to sun. You know, they're cold blooded, so they're going to warm themselves, and that's why you take that bait and you twitch it and you just let it sit there. Count, you know, give it 5, 10 seconds, twitch, and then let it sit there. They'll come up, and then when they, you know, it's just like a bottom bouncing bait. If they nose down on it, they're going to come up and they're going to look at it. You twitch it, they're going to eat it. So sometimes, even when they're active, down deep, slow down.
There's a good chance that I'm just going too fast with it.
Even with moving baits, slow down sometimes. It pays off.
Yeah, I hear, you know, as we're coming into this, whatever you want to call late fall, early winter, I hear, you know, you want to be a lot slower anyways, just because colder weather, the flow much, so easier you make it for them to get it, the more likely they are to bite.
Yeah. And right now, you know, I don't know where you're fishing, but, you know, when I was out, and this is a pretty highland reservoir that I was on South Holston, you know, water temps were 57 when I got there first thing in the morning. Like, surface temp probably got up to 59. So that water temp is still great. There was still some topwater action going on that day, but most of them that we found, I got a little bit of a late start that day, and most of the topwater that I found were smaller fish, so I just never could get any of them to hang on. But, you know, really, as I graphed throughout the day, I started seeing more and more fish out there around, over, or in, you know, totally already committed to deep water on the main lake. You know, we found several points where there were fish from 35 to 55 foot of water. And so, you know, so they're coming. They're coming. And we're getting ready for the Demiki rig bite, which is one of my favorite bites, to get really, really hot right now. So, which it probably already is, and I just missed it yesterday.
Well, tell me this. I'm going to be going fishing here in a few days, and yeah, generally I'm in a river. I fish a lot in here in Middle Tennessee, the Stones River,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, it goes into Percy Priest Lake. It's real calm. There ain't hardly any current through there. You know, it's in the middle. It's through most areas I fish, it's like maybe 20 foot deep or something like that. Should I be sticking with those rivers right now this time of year with the weather we've been having, or should I should I go into like the main lake? What would you recommend with that?
You know, with what I've seen, and if you're fishing the river, you know, I know it's calm, but there's still current there.
Yeah.
And as I was listening, I got to see Ott Defo do a seminar there, and he's a big river rat. Everybody knows him as a river rat. And, you know, he was talking about something, and I don't, you know, I fished some rivers growing up, but I don't get to fish a lot of rivers now. he was telling in that seminar, he was talking about during the summer, it's almost like they can't get shallow enough. But as it gets colder and colder, that's when you really want to start looking for your deep holes, where you really want to start looking for your current breaks, your ambush spots, that water, that slower water, the slowest water you can find. And, not knowing what the water temperatures are in the river right now, I would pretty much guess that they're still probably chasing. They're still probably pretty active, but they're still probably starting to migrate to those areas where they're going to winter. So any sort of current break, that you can find that's closer to deeper water. Right now, any sort of bait fish, anything that you can find in that way. And on the river, absolutely, a jerk bait should be just a killer bait right now on the river. I mean, it should just be a killer bait. And I would suspect that a smaller swim bait. Now, you want to downsize. Most time on most rivers, at least the rivers around me, you're going to want to downsize, your jerk baits and your swim baits. You're not necessarily going to throw, a 6-inch or an 8-inch, probably going to throw more of those Kitex, those 3.3s, 2.8s, that sort of stuff. Those 3.5-inch swim baits in that sort of area. But I think that's the sort of stuff. And then you can never discount a jig on the river at all. I mean, so I think
I'm definitely gonna have my jig tied on.
yeah. I think that's something that you can never discount on the river. So, but that's what I'd be looking for.
Now, a jerk bait on the river. Would I need to be trying to throw more like a shad colored jerk bait? Or
depending on water clarity. That's where I always start.
Generally got about 3 foot of clarity.
And that's perfect. That's perfect. Most of the time, I mean, I have caught fish on a jerk bait, on a Fire Tiger jerk bait, in like basically chalk yoo-hoo. I've done it, but I knew they were there, so it's not something I would use to search, and it's not something I would normally use in that situation. But 3 foot is perfect, depending on the sun that you have that day and how much wind, how much chop on the water. That's when you want to maybe brighten it or dull it out. You get a real high sun with 3 foot. I'm gonna pick up 2 different things and let the fish tell me what colors. I'm gonna pick up something that's got a lot of chrome in it, so a lot of flash, or I'm gonna pick up something that's translucent, something that maybe's got a little bit of flash, but maybe it's a little more subtle. On a slick day, I'm probably going to go with that little more subtle side to begin with. On a day it's got just a little bit of chop on the water, I'm going to pick that chrome up. We get a little bit of clouds, I'm probably going to pick up something that's got some color to it of some sort. Don't go crazy. Just something that's got some color. And then species that I'm going to target, you're targeting largemouth primarily, or you're targeting smallmouth. Smallmouth, man, I'm wanting something that's got some lavender, some pink, some chartreuse, something that's just going to tick them off when they see it. Largemouth, you got to look a little more natural. They're like me. They're fat. They're lazy. They ain't chasing everything coming and going. They're more sitting there waiting for it to come to them. They like a buffet more than they like fast food. So,
hey, I feel you on that fat and lazy part. I need to slim down myself before I sink my kayak.
I tell you what, I bought me a little. I told somebody the other day, listen, I would love to have a kayak, but I told somebody the other day, I said, listen, I said, I weigh about 345. I said, no disrespect to Mr. Fluke Master, but I ain't seen a fat man look comfortable in a kayak yet, man. I said, once I see that, I'll get me a kayak.
Hey, let me tell you what. If you're willing to spend the money, there are kayaks out there that you'd be plenty comfortable in. One of the other guys here on the show, Brian Schiller, he's got the Blue Sky. It's basically like a whatever it is.
Is that the?
I'm not sure
pontoon?
how long it is. Yeah, it's like a pontoon with a seat there.
That looks comfortable.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna lie. I seen that and I was like, now that's right down my alley.
And then you got like the Hobies get real big.
Yeah.
The Native Titan. Man, I'll tell you what, I was at a kayak shop last weekend and I was just kind of browsing around. The Native Titan, dude, those things there are huge.
I've never seen one in person.
Man, they got a 13 and a half footer, and those things are so wide. Like they're probably, I don't want to say a number because I'm probably going to be way off, but it's really wide. Yeah.
Well, now that would be right down my alley. I bought me a little, because I wanted me a small boat. I used to I had a 14-foot John boat, forever and a day. And the worst thing I ever did was sell it. And I got my bass boat and I thought, well, I don't need this no more. I'm going to sell it. Oh, man, biggest mistake of my life. So I found a really good deal on one of those little Pelican bass raiders.
Yeah,
and,
I saw it.
And I really liked that little boat. But I didn't realize, I was watching I got a new drone and I was watching the drone footage. I didn't realize how deep that front end was setting up and that butt end was kicked up.
Hey, let me tell you a little story about something like that. I had a 14-foot V-hole John boat as my first boat I ever bought. And I didn't know what I was doing when I bought it because I wanted something I could put a foot control trolling motor on so I can control it with my foot while I fish and everything. Well, they're not really designed for that. The V holes, and it's a little fiberglass boat. And so I bought one anyways. I took me a piece of plywood and I bolted it to the front, and I bolted that foot control trolling motor to it, and I rigged up my foot control, and I didn't have a motor on the back or nothing. And me and my buddy went out in it, and I'm sitting here. At the time, I was a little bit lighter. I was probably about 220. And my buddy, he's like 170 soaking wet. And I got the trolling motor and the battery. The battery was kind of in the middle of the boat.
Yeah.
But you got me up here with the trolling motor and all that, and you got his little butt back there. Man, it's just sitting here like this, like the whole rear end of the boat's just sticking up. Like, you didn't even have to put a drain plug in the back because it was sticking out of the water.
I think that's the only reason mine didn't sink over the top was because I had the batteries. The batteries are wired up going to the back. So luckily it had a little bit of offset in weight, but I'd have put about a rock pile back there to keep it bowed down. I was sitting there thinking, after I started watching that footage, I was like, man, if it come a rough windstorm even out on these small lakes, I might be in trouble in this thing. But you didn't notice it when you was in the boat, but like I said, I had that drone footage and I was like, uh-oh. I was like, that's that rear end setting a little light. So,
but I ended up when I upgraded my boat, I ended up giving that little V-hole John boat to my buddy. He fixed it up. It needed some work. He done fixed it up. You can stand up in the thing now and fish from it. He's got it set up nice. It kind of makes me want it back. He hasn't transferred it to his name yet, so technically it's still mine.
There you go. But yeah, man, I don't know how much I'm gonna get to go out and fish in that little boat this year. the rest of this year. But another one of the biggest reasons that I bought that is, Northeast Tennessee, which is where I fish mostly, there's not a lot of lakes that have got grass in them at all. But I live right on the Virginia-Tennessee border. Oh, excuse me. And there's a couple of small lakes over here that have some grass in them. One of them I grew up fishing, and so I'm really interested in getting out there and frogging and fishing some mats, because frogging up here is something that you don't get to do a whole lot unless you're doing it really in like trash pockets, or during the spring when they're all getting ready or protecting beds or something like that, something where they're just going to bite anything that's moving over top of them. And so so that's hopefully that's gonna help me out, make me a little better at doing some things that I haven't got to do a whole lot of, and I can, still stay pretty close to the house. Ain't gotta, travel around the country to learn how to do it,
Right.
So that's one of the biggest reasons I bought that little boat. So I can't wait to get out, next year during the summer and change it up a little bit. I do a lot of the offshore structure stuff during the summer, which I love. But, in the end, the ultimate goal is becoming a better, more well-rounded angler, and sometimes that means, stepping out of your comfort zone and putting yourself out there and learning new techniques all the time. And that's what I love. I tell people all the time, before I ever had a YouTube channel, before any social media, before I ever fished my first tournament, I just enjoyed this style of fishing, because I'm not a guy that can just sit with a 6-pack of Pabst Blue Ribbon or something and a can of worms, on the
tube
bank.
socks.
Yeah, with sandals. But I just can't do that. Me, I like to be moving. I like to be thinking. I like to be figuring, the thing out. And that's what I like about this style of fishing. I just, and if you took all that stuff away, it'd still be what I did every time I got off work. It's just what I enjoy doing, is trying to solve that puzzle. I love catching them. Don't get me wrong. I love catching them, but I love knowing why I'm catching them when I do. And that's, and being able to add that to the database. That's, and repeat it. Now that's when you're doing something. I don't get to do that a lot, but it's fun when it happens.
Yeah, hopefully I'll be putting together the puzzle pretty soon.
You will, man.
I'm about ready to. I want to figure it out so bad. I feel like I'm right there, being able to. I've learned a lot this year. I've probably caught twice as many fish just in 2019 than I've caught since past 5 years combined.
That's good. That's good.
It's been a really great year. I'm really looking forward to next year and seeing where I'm at after next year and everything. But yeah, I just love bass fishing like you. I enjoy doing this podcast and getting to learn from this and helping other people learn. But like you said, if I didn't have it, I'm still going to be bass fishing. I'm still going to be out there, doing what I love.
Yeah, man, I enjoy it, and I enjoy everything about it. I'm lucky enough that, I'm in a situation to where, I get to do a lot of different things, try a lot of different things, a lot of different techniques. 2019 for me, I ain't gonna lie to you, I'll be happy when it's over. This year's been a rough year for me. There's just been a lot of stuff in the personal life, My father-in-law passed away, and work, man. We had a guy move on, and my schedule's kind of crazy, and so we was working like 75, 80 hours a week, and then you know you're trying to do a YouTube channel on top of that, so you're trying to get something out. And I know there's a lot of guys that are always like, man, show us those tough days too when you don't catch nothing. Man, that's really hard to make a video that anybody wants to watch when you're zero. I've thrown up one fish videos, a lot. And but you go out there and use zero, man. I mean, that's hard to put a video up, and that ain't pride speaking. I just don't know how to make that entertaining. And
yeah.
And because trust me, if I did, I'd have a lot more video content.
Hey, I'd have quite a bit myself.
I could put out, 5 videos a week if I could put up every zero, man. But
hey, I've only got maybe like 4 or 5 videos on my personal YouTube channel, and a couple of those are catching it or hooking into a fish and then losing it. Like I don't think I have too many of me catching a fish. I think I got one on there of me catching a bluegill on a whopper plopper.
That's impressive. That's pretty impressive. But no, and I tell people all the time, like I said, 2019 is a tough year for me, and pretty much from spawn till the end of the good fall feed, I missed a lot of it because even the days that I did get to get out on the water, I had to put out some content, so I had to go out there and fish for half a day and then film half a day for the one day that I had. And man, I got a guy who's helping me next year, edit and stuff. And man, I cannot wait. I hope next year is going to be as fun as I think it's going to be. I will just tell you, I enjoy winter fishing, but I hate cold weather. I hate it, man. And
I'm the same way.
I know guys want to see the cold weather fishing. The Demiki videos always do well, and I do love catching them. I mean, you catch a smallmouth in 50 foot of water, you hook him up on 6-pound test line with a little tiny hook that barely ain't got a barb, and you're bringing him up. He feels like a 10-pounder before he finally gets to the boat. Your heart is just thumping, but on 2 or 3 pound largemouth or smallmouth, like I said, I'm ready. I'm ready for 2020 to get here, man. I'm jacked up about 2020. I think I'm gonna get to do a lot more fishing, be able to put out a lot more good content. Got a schedule, got a guy helping me edit, and editing takes so many hours of your day, and I got to miss the, oh man, I'm ready to go fishing. I'm still where most everybody was back in, February, March, April, May. They were like, yeah, we're going fishing. I pretty much had to nix all that. So right at the end of May, it was over for me for the most part. And I was like, oh man, this stinks. So I want your 2019 to be my 2020, where I get back out there and I get back in touch with, fishing, because, that's what I want my channel to always be about is the fishing, and not just me standing there telling you how to. I want to show you how to, that's because, if I ain't catching them, I ain't happy. So, and I ain't been happy in 2019. I ain't been happy. Not enough time in the water.
Yeah, I hope 2020 turns out better for you. I hope I have an even better year next year than I had this year, but I hope you have a better year too next year. But everybody, you hear them talking about coming out with all this content. Y'all make sure y'all go over to YouTube and follow them. Bass Geek. It's all one word, correct? It's all one word, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Bass Geek, all one word. You know, make sure you give him a follow. You're probably already following him, but just in case, go ahead and go in there and follow him. Yeah, man. I feel like this was a good talk. A lot of good information in there and everything. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we wrap this up?
Man, not really. I mean, just I appreciate you guys having me on. It definitely helps. This time of year, a lot of people are out hunting. I strictly chase the green and browns. So I don't do a lot of hunting, and so I appreciate any sort of shout outs and help, and I love to come talk about fishing. I don't know if you've noticed, but I think you've said 3 words and I've said 3,000 since we've been on.
Hey, that makes it easy on me. I ain't gotta say a whole lot. I end up making a fool of myself if I talk too much.
Man, I tell everybody at the end of it, I think they hear it all the time. My sort of little outro thing I do is I say, as always, questions and comments in the comment section below. I love to talk about fishing with you. And I think people think I'm just BSing them, but as you can tell, I really enjoy talking about fishing. Listen, I can waste some hours doing it, So I love it. I love to talk about it. I love to think about it, and I love to learn about it, And anytime I get a chance to do that, even tonight, I called 2 of my buddies. There's this guy talking about a certain way he was fishing a Demiki rig when I was at the boat ramp yesterday, and I was like, "What?" I was like, "What is that?" I was like, "What are you targeting there?" I wouldn't go ask that guy because I didn't know him from Adam, and he'd probably be like, "I'm telling you all my secrets." So of course I'm calling like 3 friends, and I'm like, "Hey man, tell me about this. What is this guy talking about? How's he doing this? What's he targeting? Is he just targeting shad? What's going on?" So I mean, you're always learning and searching for information. That's probably all I got to say. Don't allow it to get stale. That's the big deal. Enjoy it. We get to fish some beautiful places, see some things that a lot of people don't understand and know. And man, just enjoy it, and then go watch Bass Geek and watch me make an idiot out of myself. I'm good at it.
Yeah, there's a lot of people listen to this. You like to get the tips and tricks on that other people have on fishing. Hank here. He's got a lot of that stuff on his YouTube channel, so you can check it out. But Hank, man, it was a pleasure having you on here. I know it was a long back and forth, and constantly, you having something come up, me having something come up. So it took a while for us to put this together, but I think it was well worth the wait. Really appreciate you coming on here and sharing some of your knowledge. Is there any shout outs you want to make, or
man, the only shout outs I'm going to give is just, guys, make sure you can, I swear, if you Google Bass Geek, trust me, you'll find me. Just check me out on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm out there. That's really, really about it, man.
All right. Well, appreciate it again, you coming on and everything. Maybe in the future we can get together again and do it. It's been fun. Had a few good laughs, good info. Hope everybody out there enjoyed it. So, yeah, guys, appreciate you listening. Tight lines and smooth paddling.